Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have round 8 of Becca'S Bookopoly. So if you are new to Bookopoly and this is the first video that you are ever seeing, I will put a link up here to my Bookopoly playlist, the first video of which will take you through a tour of the full board so that you know what we're doing here. But essentially, Bookopoly is the way that I pick my TBR every month, and it is quite obviously based off the board game Monopoly. But for those of you who have been here for a while, let us move on. Okay, so before we get into anything, there are a couple of things that I would like to address about the coming month. There are quite a few things happening in August, one of which is the Newt's Magical Readathon that's hosted by G over at Book Roast. I will be posting a separate TBR video which should come the day after Bookopoly goes up for the Newt's Magical Readathon, and the reason for that is that because of the way that the Newt's works, I can't really do it the way that I did the Owls, where I had Bookopoly pick the Owls. So to make my Newt's TBR cohesive and make sense, I will just be doing a separate video. Some of the books that I will be reading for the Newt's will also be present in my Bookopoly TBR, so there will be a little bit of repetition, but I just wanted to put both of the videos out so that they are both cohesive individually. The second thing is that in August I will be going on holiday for 1 week. I'm going to Rome from the 20th to the 28th of August. Now, as of yet, I have not even started planning that holiday. I still have a ton of things to pay for and a ton of things to do, and I haven't booked any tours or anything. I don't have an itinerary, and I am an itinerary person because I have been so busy. So because of those two things, the holiday being especially important, I have decided that for 1 month and 1 month only, there will be no punishment if I do not read my August books. Like I said, the main reason is that I won't be reading at all for 1 week of the month. I may read a little bit on the plane there and back, but as it is a city break, there will not be any time that we will be sat around reading, and I imagine by the time I get to the hotel at night I will be exhausted. Another reason is that, as you guys probably know if you watch a lot of videos on my channel, you guys know that I do a lot, and I always say I'm fine, I like doing a lot, and I do, but at this point in the year I have read around 65 books, so I'm way ahead of my Goodreads goal. I've been doing Bookopoly and I've never failed. I've read a whole ton of books, I've done readathons, I put out a minimum of 12 videos a month, and I just need a break. So this month in August there will be no punishment if I do not read my Bookopoly books, and I'm just going to take it a little bit easier for the month of August, relieve some pressure from myself so that I can focus on some other things like planning my holiday. So now that that's over with, let's see if I read all of the books I needed to in the month of July. So this was my July TBR. We had Legion and Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson for the challenge to read an audiobook. We had both Confessions by Kay Minato and Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn for the challenge to read a mystery or a thriller. Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin was for an adult fantasy. What If It So's by Becky Albertelli and Adam Silvera was for a book set in the UK or the US. Stardust by Neil Gaiman was once again a library book. Club Dead by Charlene Harris was a paranormal or a magical realism. Catwoman by Sarah J Maas was a 5-star prediction, and Ruin and Rising by Lee Bardugo was a young adult fantasy. So of these 9 books, so far I have 3 days left of the month at the time that I'm filming this. I have read 5 of these. I'm currently almost done with Stardust by Neil Gaiman, so that will definitely be done by the end of the month, and I'm halfway through Catwoman by Sarah J Maas, so that will also be done by the end of the month. However, I did not read or start Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn or What If It So's by Becky Albertelli and Adam Silvera. So we know what that means, right guys? It is time for my first ever Bookopoly punishment. So way back at the beginning of the year when we started off this series, I did say that I was unsure what my punishment would be and that that would be a problem that I dealt with when I got to it. A couple of months ago, one of my subscribers, I'm pretty sure it was Orange, was talking to me in the comments of a different video, and they were talking about how much they dislike the book Shatter Me. One thing led to another, and Orange suggested that my punishment for not finishing my Bookopoly TBR should be to read a really bad book. So last night on Twitter I did put out a tweet. I did not say it was Bookopoly rated, but I did ask for people to spill the tea and tell me a book that they would not even force upon their enemies. Now, I have since had to mute that tweet because it got a little bit out of hand, and it has over 500 responses at the time of filming this video. My original plan was to write down every book, put it into a box and pull one out. However, the amount of responses made that virtually impossible because that's like 500 books. So what I did previous to starting filming is that I wrote down approximately 55, I think, of those. I was going for 50, but I went over a little bit, and I put them into this cute little pot that I got in the July Owlcrate, and I am going to pull one of these out and I have to read it as my first book in in August. Now, I wrote down a book every time it appeared, so there are a few books that are in here multiple times. An example of that would be Caraval by Stephanie Garber, and also Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. The interesting thing about this is that instead of it being a pot full of really bad books, it is actually a pot full of steaming hot tea. Red, White and Royal Blue is in here. Somebody really despises that book, so it has ended up in the jar. However, that is a book that I'm quite excited to read. Some of these books I own, some of them I've never heard of. Some of these I'm really excited to read, and some of them I have included in a series of videos that I do called Books I Will Never Read. So this could go anyway. I'm a little bit excited and I'm a little bit scared, but let's pick my punishment book for not completing July's Bookopoly. This is the one, guys. This is the one. So the mystery book that will be my punishment is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. So my little slip of paper tells me that Cress recommended this. Thank you very much, Cress. Your most hated book will be the book that will be added to my August TBR. I know that there's at least an audiobook of this on Scribd, although I would rather read it physically. So I will check if it's on Scribd. If not, I'll check my library, and if not, I will purchase myself a copy from Amazon. But The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein is the first book on my August TBR. So now we're done with that kerfuffle, let's get into my first roll. Okay, so last month we ended on young adult fantasy. First roll. 9. Science fiction. So roll number 1 was to read a science fiction, and I think you all know what I'm going to pick for this, but I will be reading Gemina by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. If you guys watch my vlogs, you may know that I have recently read and adored Illuminae, and as soon as I was coming to the end of Illuminae, I did Amazon Prime myself Gemina so that I would have it ready in case I could fit it into my August TBR, which clearly I can. The way that I read Illuminae is that I both physically read it and listened to the audiobook at the same time, so I was saying after I'd finished Illuminae that Gemina would be a great book for my plane to and from Rome, because I do struggle to concentrate on reading on planes, so I think that listening to the audiobook and reading it physically would be a great way to get me to actually focus on a book and make use of that time while I'm in the air. So Gemina is the second book in the Illuminae files, which is a young adult science fiction series. Each book follows different characters, but the plot of the first book is that we have Katie and Ezra who have just broken up, and the day after their breakup, a big corporation attacks the planet where they live. As many civilians as possible are evacuated, but Katie and Ezra do end up on different ships. That is pretty much all I want to say about it, because there are a lot of aspects in Illuminae that I really did not expect, and I do think that going in blind was a really good decision for me, because I was shocked. The plot twists were absolutely wild, and there were also horror aspects that I really did not expect, and with the combined experience of both reading it physically with all of the mixed media and listening to the audiobook, it was a little bit scary and I was surprised. But one thing's for sure, I'm definitely excited that I will be reading this in August. Roll number 2. 8. Ooh, Go. So for roll number 2, we landed on Go, and that is really exciting because we have never landed on Go before. And what happens when we land on Go is that we go to my Goodreads TBR, we get a random number generator up, and we pick a number and find the book that corresponds to it on my Goodreads TBR. Now before we do this, just a little bit of backstory on my Goodreads TBR. I made Emma Novella really mad once because I don't shelve anything on Goodreads aside from in my to be read, and I rarely ever go through it. I go through it around once a month to remove any books that I have read, because sometimes when I scan the books in, it's not the edition that I've marked to read on Goodreads. And at the beginning of the year, I did go through and scan every book that I owned into it, and I also took out, fingers crossed, all of the books that were later in a series, so it was only the first book in a series that was actually on my Goodreads TBR, and then I have since been trying to keep up with it. However, I do not take books off if I'm no longer interested in them. They are still on there because you know what I'm like. I'm really sentimental, and I feel like if I wanted to read a book at one point in my life, then there must have been something about it that was interesting, and so I would still give it a try. This could literally be anything. Essentially, the higher the number we get, the better, because it will have been added onto there more recently. Like with the punishment book, this could be a book that I own, it could be a book that I'm gonna have to find from somewhere, it could be something I'm excited to read, it could be something I've lost interest in, but regardless, I'm very excited. So I'm gonna come around to the other side of the camera so that you can see my phone screen, and we are going to pick my randomly generated Go book. Okay, so here is my Goodreads TBR. We have to be in desktop mode for this to work, but I will go to my random number generator and we will see what number we get. Okay, so there are 556 books on my Goodreads TBR. Let's generate. 483, so this could be a good one. So 483 should be on page 5. 483. Oh no. Okay, so the first book in the Ryria Revelations. Okay, so I no longer recall what this book is. I think I got the recommendation from Cass, from what Cass read, and she really likes this series. This is the first book in the Ryria Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. I think, according to Cass's reading order, this is the book that she recommends that you read first. And it is 649 pages. So glad that at the beginning of this video I did stipulate that I was removing the mandatory reading of these books, because this one may take me a little while to get through. So as I already knew, this is an adult high fantasy, and I'm just going to read you the Goodreads synopsis of this. In my reading vlogs and my end of August wrap up, I will give you a detailed synopsis. But Goodreads says, they killed the king, they pinned it on 2 men, they chose poorly. There's no ancient evil to defeat or orphan destined for greatness, just unlikely heroes and classic adventure. Royce Melbourne, a skilled thief, and his mercenary partner Hadrian Blackwater are 2 enterprising rogues who end up running for their lives when they're framed for the murder of the king. Trapped in a conspiracy that goes beyond the overthrow of a tiny kingdom, their only hope is unraveling an ancient mystery before it is too late. So that's the plot of that one, and Theft of Swords is added to my August TBR. What I will say is that this is 2 books in one. I may just read the first book in August and then save the second book for a different time. Roll number 3 is a 6. Paranormal or magical realism. So roll number 3 was to read a paranormal or a magical realism. This prompt seems to be coming up quite a lot, but I have picked Dead to the World by Charlene Harris. You're probably not surprised. This is the 4th book in the Sookie Stackhouse series, which is a series of paranormal romance books that follows a woman who can read people's thoughts. She works in a bar in this world where vampires are known, so humans coexist with vampires, although it is a relatively new thing. And one day a vampire walks into her bar and she can't read his thoughts, which makes him very attractive to her. They start a relationship, and because of their relationship she does get dragged into a world of vampire politics, and because of her special ability the other vampires do like to take advantage of that, and whenever they have a problem they have her interrogate human suspects or witnesses, etc. So I don't love this series. I gave the first book 2 stars and I gave the following 2 books that I've read 3 stars. This is book 4. I mean, it's kind of average. I do have my problems with it, but I can't deny that it is very fast paced and it is very fun. I have been reading these roughly at a pace of 1 book per month. I am excited to read this one because Bobby told me that when I read book 4 I can then start watching the TV show, because after book 4 and the first few seasons of the show the plots diverge enough that it doesn't matter if I'm not caught up with the books and I'm watching the TV show. And as well as that, Bobby also told me this book has the best shower sex scene that she has ever read, and as this is a popular series quite a lot of you guys have read it and you guys keep telling me that book 4 is the best in the series or your favourite in the series, so I'm definitely excited to see what's going on there. Number 4. 6 again. Read an ebook or an audiobook. Role number 4 was to read an ebook or an audiobook, and once again this is a prompt that hasn't come up before. I do have a Scriv membership and that is where I get most of my ebooks and my audiobooks from, and to fulfill this prompt I will be reading Startled by His Fairy Shorts. I think this is the 7th book in the Confessions of Georgie Nicholson series by Louise Renison. Now I'm going to go ahead and say that this is my favourite book series from childhood. I absolutely adored these books and I just found them to be hilarious and one of the most engaging book series that I'd ever read, and I was a voracious reader as a child as well, so I was reading quite a lot of things. However, I believe that the last book in this series was released when I was in college and I just never got around to picking it up. So at the moment I am currently rereading all of the books in this series via audiobook so that I can finally read the last book in this series and get some closure and find out how it all ends. So for those of you that don't know, this is a contemporary young adult book series that follows Georgie Nicholson, who is 13 at the beginning of the series. She's almost 16 at this point, and it is essentially just just a coming of age series told in diary format, and it's just about going through puberty, becoming attracted to boys, having your first boyfriend, your first kiss, etc. What to do when your best friend is in a long-term relationship and you're not, and things like that. It's just really fun. I wouldn't say that these books necessarily stand up to the test of time, but I do still find them really entertaining. I would not recommend them to people who have never read this series, but if you are looking for a reread, I can confirm that they are still hilarious the second time around, and the audiobooks are also really good because they are narrated by Louise Renison. And hopefully finally, roll number 9, which is a young adult fantasy. Okay, so we are up to the final roll. We have no doubles this month, which honestly is great news. So our final roll is to read a young adult fantasy, and if you've been watching these videos for the last few months, you will probably know that my young adult fantasy is going to be Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I am buddy reading the entire Grishaverse with Jade from JD Ray Reads. She has never read any of them before. I have read the Grisha trilogy, and we are reading one book per month. Last month we wrapped up the Grisha trilogy with Ruin and Rising, and now we are finally onto Six of Crows, which is the point that we both wanted to be on anyway, because we want to know what the hype is about. So all I really know about this book is that everybody goes batshit crazy for it. There's a character called Kazbreca who everybody is hot for, and there is a heist in here, but the book isn't about the heist. It's very character driven. There's also somebody called Nina who likes waffles, I think, but essentially everybody really loves this series. There's a lot of representation in here, I think, for things like mental health and disability, and like I said, everybody absolutely loses their mind over this. This is like booktube's darling, and everybody absolutely adores it. I have heard that it's a bit of a slow burn and that the first part can be a drag, but by the end it is all worth it, and I'm gonna feel all of the feelings, and then I'm gonna lose my shit at the end of Crooked Kingdom. So that is all I know about Six of Crows, but I am of course very excited to get to it because it has been many years, and I'm finally gonna find out what the hype is about with this book. So that is it for my Bookopoly TBR. I did forget to mention at the beginning of this video, but another reason why there will be no punishment if I don't complete my Bookopoly books this month is because I also have a number of buddy reads and book club books that I need to read. I was supposed to read Nevernight in July and I haven't gotten around to it, which means I need to read Nevernight and God's Grave in August. So there are a few additional books that will be coming to my August TBR. However, as I said, I will be doing a separate video for the Newt's Magical Readathon. Most of these books, if not all of them, are going to fit into my Newt's TBR. So like I said at the beginning, there will be a little bit of repetition, but there will also be quite a few other books going into that TBR that I couldn't get into Bookopoly this month, but my priorities for the month are definitely going to be those buddy reads, so Six of Crows, and also like the book club books that I need to read because I'm feeling a little bit behind. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, so I'm just going to take August to calm down, dial it back, and relax and catch up a little bit, and I hope you guys don't mind. So that is it for this month's Bookopoly. Please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.